Hi everyone, Brady here from Almost Pro Gaming, and I've got another Diablo 4 video for you guys. I've gotten some questions from comments on my last video, and also some of my friends that I play with that are more casual. They've asked me, how does gear progression work? When should you be looking for upgrades? When should you be actually upgrading your gear, like at the blacksmith? When should you be socketing your gear? When should you be adding aspects to your gear and all of that stuff? And I'm here to say it's actually incredibly simple, at least the way that I do it and that I've been getting by on the two characters that I've progressed into endgame. So here is my quick 5 to 10 minute guide on gear progression. So for levels 1 to 10, the very early game, just pick up blue items, which are called magic items. Pick those up, and if the numbers are green or there's a green arrow pointed up, just equip it. That's it. Very simple. Early game, you don't have to worry too much about stats. The only stats that really matter early game are armor and the DPS on your weapon. That's it. Now, levels 11 to 20, you're going to start seeing rare items. These rare items, for the most part, you're still going to pay attention to the armor value on the gear and the DPS on the weapon. But it's at this point that you do start paying attention to the stats that roll on your on your gear, at least. On the weapon, it's not so important because the weapon, by far, the DPS stat is the most important stat for a very long time. But for your armor, around level 20-ish is when you're going to want to start paying attention to the actual stats on your gear, because those are going to start to, the value from those are going to start to outweigh the armor value that you would get from like armor and jewelry. And when I say pay attention to it, I mean try to figure out, depending on which build you plan on going or which starter build you plan on using to get through normal with, find the stats that make the most sense for you. Do you make stuff vulnerable? Get vulnerable damage. Do you slow stuff? Get damage to slowed. Do you use a bunch of cooldowns? You probably want some cooldown reduction. Stuff like that. Like, just figure out what your character needs and start looking at those stats on rare items between 11 to 20. But again, 11 to 20, armor value is still greater at this point, unless you find some godlike rolls on those rares. But now, progressing forward, level 21 to 30. This is where you really start to pay attention to the stats on the yellow items. Find an item that has like 2 or 3 good rolls that make sense for your build. So again, if you're doing like something that has good vulnerable damage, maybe you want vulnerable on it, maybe you want crit, maybe whatever, just depending on what your build is, find a rare item that has 2 or 3 of the stats that work really well with your build and have decent rolls, like they're not like super low rolled, which you can easily find by going to your options, gameplay, and you want to put this advanced tooltip information. You want to turn that on, because what that does is that actually shows you, if you see like on these boots here, 18 all stats, 11 to 20, that shows you the roll that you can possibly get on that stat for this item. So that 18 all stats is on the high end of what that could have rolled. So if you turn on that extra information and you start looking at gear, find items that have the stats that you want with values that are on the higher end. Sure, you can take the ones that are on the lower end, but those will probably be replaced within the next level or two. But if you find some that are on the higher end, those are going to be decent items, and those are going to stick with you for probably about 10 levels or so. So because of that, this is the point in the game where you can start actually putting aspects onto your rare gear. In my opinion, I think it is way more efficient to only rely on dungeon aspects at this point in the game. Because relying on legendary aspects, there's a chance that you put that legendary aspect on an item, and then within a level or two, you're going to find an item that's even better, and you're going to, in a way, waste that legendary aspect. So instead, I only rely on the aspects you get from the Codex of Power, the ones that you get from dungeons. Get these from the dungeons and only use these for normal difficulty for the most part. Because in normal difficulty, you're going to change your gear every few levels for the most part, unless you find good rolls, in which case it'll be about every 10 levels. But yeah, just use these because these are easily replaceable. If you get a chest piece and put this on a chest piece and then get a new chest piece within a couple levels, well, guess what? You still have the aspect in your codex to easily replace it with, as long as you have the golden materials. So that's why, at least for me, for most of normal, I don't rely on legendary aspects unless I find an item that has incredibly good rolls that I know is going to stick with me for like the next 10 levels or so. And that's just something that's going to come with time and experience, knowing if an item has good rolls or not. So that's not really something that I can teach in this video. It's something I could possibly make another video on in the future. So if you actually like that idea, subscribe and comment down below and let me know if you want to see a video talking about what stats work for which builds. Then when you get to 30 to 50, By this point, this is where you're going to start finding gear less and less. This is where my 10 level rule kicks in the most. Is you might find let's say you get lucky and you find an upgrade for every item you have at level 30. You're probably not going to find an upgrade for those items until around level 40 by that point. Because by this point, you should have already been min-maxing those stats in between levels 21 to 30. And in my opinion, that's more than enough time to find some decent gear that's going to be able to get you through normal for the most part. Because like on this character in particular, I went with some gear from like level 25 to like level 40. 45-ish, because the stat rolls I got were just so lucky and so good for my build that I was able to make it work for that many levels. But yeah, by this point, 30 to 50, every 10 levels, look for upgrades, upgrade them. Outside of that, you can kind of just go about your day. Another rule that I like to use too is if you find a piece of gear, like let's say some boots, and within 2 levels, you haven't found an upgrade for those boots, I would stop looking at boots. I would just sell every pair of boots that I have, because I figure I'm probably not getting a better version of that item until 10 levels from then. And an easy way to know if you forget what level you get a piece of gear at, if you look at the boots that I'm wearing on my Necromancer right now, you'll see in the bottom right corner, requires level 49. Whatever that says, that's the level you found the item at. So for me, if I follow my rules, I'm probably not going to start looking at boots until about level 59, because that's when I'm probably on average going to find items that drop that just have better stats due to the built-in magic find because of your character's level. So yeah, every 10 levels, start upgrading your gear. That's basically it. And then progressing to level 50, finish off your build, top it off, do the little upgrades you might need to do if you can afford it to be able to go do the capstone dungeon. Once you're out of the capstone dungeon and you get into Nightmare, you're going to farm for gear for the first level or 3. By that point, you're going to pretty much replace every piece of gear that you had from normal, because sacred gear, which you get in Nightmare, is just so much better than normal gear. And as soon as you do that, you find those upgrades, those sacred upgrades, you put your aspects on them. This is when you can start using legendary aspects, by the way, because this is really where the 10 level rule kicks in, is in Nightmare and in Inferno. So because of this is when we go all out in upgrading our gear. Upgrade to like 4, I wouldn't say 5, because again, that gear is going to get replaced at some point, but upgrade to 4, socket all of your stuff if you can afford it, do all that stuff to get your character as strong as you can for the next 10 levels. Then speed through those 10 levels as fast as you can if you want, or you can continue looking at every rare that you pick up. It's just going to be very time consuming, but if you enjoy it, I'm not going to stop you. I usually wait about 10 levels to start replacing that gear. And then from this point on in Nightmare, it's basically just rinse and repeat. Wait 10 levels, find a bunch of gear, replace your current gear, upgrade that gear, use it for 10 levels. Find some more gear, replace that gear you were just wearing, add your aspects, upgrade it, and then use that for 10 levels, and then just keep repeating. And that's pretty much it. It is literally that simple. Now, when it comes to which, again, like I said earlier, when it comes to which stats make the most sense for your character, that's something that you'll get with time and experience of just playing the game. Or if it's something that you'd rather someone teach you, again, feel free to subscribe and leave a comment, and I'll make a video talking about what stats to look out for pretty much every build. I could generalize it for the most part, kind of like how I'm doing with this video, but I think that's a topic that I could help people out with as well. So yeah, this is a very basic guide on when you should be upgrading your gear. If you have any more questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments below, and I'll help you guys out as best as I can. Other than that, I'm just going to let you guys know I'm going to be posting a build guide for this unique Necromancer that I've been making for the last few days, and that should be out within a couple of days. I'm just waiting to actually get into Inferno and test out some late game damage stuff to see if I need to make any changes to the build, and then I'll be uploading that build for you guys. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope I was able to teach you something, and again, if you have any questions, leave them down below. And yeah, I'll see you guys in hell. Have a good one.